You guys ever step away from a project for a few days and totally forget where you were at, what you were doing? Well, that's where we are right now. So last weekend, we had a big cleanup weekend here. We had a 30-yard dumpster brought in, and we filled that in 2 days. Definitely got a lot done, that's for sure. But tonight we are back working on this, and I'm trying to get this done now because we're getting very close to being able to head to the woods and start cutting timber. And I can't wait. And I know my son can't wait to go. This is going to be his first, it's not his first time, but this will be the first time he's really going in a pretty much a helping capacity. Plus, it's in a nice location. So remember, if you're working with Kreg screws and pocket holes, there are different screws for different jobs. Being as how we're into hardwood here, we're using the fine thread screws. They tend not to split the wood out as much. They're kind of self-tapping. Beautiful. And the Kreg clamp that doubles as a welding clamp for me, unfortunately, a lot of times, is very handy for this stuff. And I'm going to knock everything over. I'm going to destroy the camera in the process. That'd be a good one, huh? So full disclosure for you nutsacks who notice everything on this channel, and there are a few of you, I can tell you that. This lumber I'm using, I didn't properly dry it. I didn't have it stickered. It was in the middle of the barn build when I milled this stuff out. So it really didn't get treated quite right. It got leaned up in a corner. And it's not horrible, but it's certainly not as straight as it should be. Has some twists in it that were totally avoidable, which I'm dealing with one right here. But fortunately, this stuff is thin enough when you cut it down to the 3/4 that it's not too bad to deal with. You can kind of get the twist and the warps out of it. You'll take care of a lot of that in your cabinet boxes. I remember I told you guys I hauled a camper home last fall, closer towards the end of summer. Hauled a camper home with the purpose of turning it into our sawmill trailer, and then decided that the camper frame was just way too light duty for that application. But the axles on it were in really good shape, and they're 3,500 pound axles. Well, anyway, it took last weekend, didn't run the camera because I just wanted to get it done. And I'll be honest with you, it's really tough getting stuff done and running the camera at the same time. And when you're kind of under the gun and you're just trying to get it done fairly reasonably quickly. Now, long story short, the kids and I tore that thing apart, and I've got it down to where I can get the axles and everything else now. So with that torn down, we're kind of finally at a spot where we're going to really be able to get moving on that trailer build and really get it done properly. So we're doing the main stiles and rails right now. And basically when you're designing cabinets, furniture, anything like that, dresser's pretty much a big cabinet. It's important for aesthetics anyway to kind of try to hide that end grain as best as you can. And that's kind of the principle with a lot of things. When we're doing the timber framing, the only end grains in the building that aren't buried under a mortise or something like that would be our top plates and our purlin plates. And obviously they're covered up by siding and all that good stuff, but it's no different when you're doing furniture. You're trying to make sure you're not looking at those end grains all the time. If you folks have never used one of these crosscut sleds, they're incredible to use. It's quicker than a chop saw, to be quite honest with you, and it's so much more convenient in a shop setting. Now, if you're out on a job site, personally I'd stick with the chop saw on a job site were it me. But these guys right here, love these things. If you guys can't tell, I'm doing what I always do on my projects, just kind of winging it. See what I like and what I don't like. It's funny. You know, so many people put down the Kreg system and all that, but I used to mortise and tenon everything in my woodworking projects, which I still do from time to time. It is a nice way of building, and I enjoy doing it. But I tell you what, I honestly have found that doing the Kreg system over the years, the pocket holes and all that good stuff, to me, I found it to be just as strong and last a long time. Oh, that's a horrible noise. Now you're going to be tempted with some of the new Kreg drill bits to using them in an impact because they've got the quick release connection on them. Don't use them in an impact. It's a quick way to destroy the bit. You can ask me how I know, and I'll tell you I have done it before. And when you're in the middle of a project, and a lot of times it's the only one you have, now I make sure I keep a couple of them on hand. But I was drilling something hard and the impact actually broke the shank off the bit. The pocket holes are a wonderful thing in cabinet and furniture work, especially for stuff that you're never going to see. It's just amazing how square and rigid you can build stuff. And no, Kreg Tools is not sponsoring the video. Anytime I mention some brand of tools or something on the channel, I get called a sellout. I showed a DeWalt jigsaw about a year ago. I had a few comments on that one. Oh, you're a sellout. What's next? You going to start taking sponsors? It's like, wow. Just wow. But I only show tools that I would actually use myself or that I own. And I've never had a video sponsored by anybody. Now the log ox was sent to me to try out. If you guys remember that one, that was a great, really good tool. Helps if you bring the clamp with you. If you guys can't tell, this is going to be one big dresser. It's 6 feet wide. No, I should say 6 feet long, 5 feet tall. It's going to end up being about 18 inches deep. by the time we're all said and done. You never know. It may fall apart, it might not. Who knows? So like I said earlier, this is all about making sure that your everything's hidden. So all your end grains, anything of that nature. You guys don't see me doing jigs and a lot of that type of stuff on this channel very often. When I want to get something exactly the same all the way across, you know, and I want to get my spacings right, I'll use spacer blocks to make all that happen. Nice. Oh, in my haste, I didn't drill them all. Let's see what that gives us for a drawer there. I guess one more 10-inch space wouldn't hurt. Kind of a big face frame. Usually not, at least I'm usually not putting them together this big. Well, here it is, our finished face frame. Now, I'll give you guys an idea how big this frame is. I'm 6'2". This is 5 feet tall, 6 feet wide. A couple things to note on a face frame this big, especially non-kiln dried lumber, even kiln dried stuff. Regardless of whatever you're building cabinet-wise, get in the habit of polyurethane or whatever you're sealing the wood up on all sides, all end grains, especially the end grains, because that's where wood dries the fastest. That's where you're going to get most of your cracking and your checking. Now, this stuff is not kiln dried, but it's been drying long enough. It should be fairly stable in the condition it's in. Now, there's a very slight It's hardly noticeable now that the frame's together. That's one of the nice things is using the Kreg jigs or even mortise and tenon and stuff like this. It takes a lot of the twisting and the racking out of your lumber as long as what you're screwing into or you're mortising into is strong enough to hold those forces. But something you may want to consider if you're doing one this long, especially if you have we have 33-inch openings here wide, and that's a pretty wide opening for a 3/4 inch thick board. Sometimes you may want to put some stretchers on the back of it, and we will be doing that here and there just to make sure everything stays straight. So it'd be a board screwed on edge behind all this. It'd never be seen. It's in a dresser, so once the drawers are in, you're never going to see anything on the inside of that cabinet. But so as I said before, the species is black cherry. This was stuff we milled ourselves 4 or 5 years ago now. The only thing we're going to run into is it's been out in the barn for a long time. And sometimes that's not a good thing when you go to bring a project inside that's, you get all kind of humidity swings when you're out in an unheated building or not cooled in the summertime. So it's really something to be aware of. But once you poly this stuff, you get it sealed up really well. A lot of the times it's not much of an issue, especially if you did your due diligence in drying it. I think probably about the best moisture content, if memory serves me correctly, that you're going to get drying stuff outside or in a barn like this is usually, I want to say, around 12 to 14%, something like that. Some of you who know better, I'm sure you'll correct me in the comments on that. But anyway, so what we've been doing in the off time, why I haven't been seeing as much out. I know it sounds like a million excuses, but so I'm trying to get away from running the camera for things that are just totally redundant and have nothing to do with the projects we're working on. Part of that, like I said, we rented a big dumpster, filled that up. So now I finally have axles for the sawmill trailer so we can continue that. But what I'm trying to do, we're in the time of year now where it could be 60 degrees one day, it could be 30 the next and snowing. So what we're trying to do is when the weather's good, I'm going to be working on the sawmill trailer. When the weather is crappy, I'm going to be trying to get this finished up. And this needs to be done before I head to the woods. We're going to be heading to the woods to start cutting our timber probably in about a month, if that. We're going to be going down pretty soon, start marking trees, get all that stuff ready, get a game plan. The fortunate part of that is, fortunately, I'm not going after huge stuff. The biggest stuff I'm really looking for is like 18-inch for this build. So that's perfect. It's going to be quite easy to handle with the four-wheeler and the log arch. And I've got some plans for the sawmill trailer, I think, that are going to be a huge help in loading the logs. We're just going to see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I guess I shouldn't say that. We've said that before and paid for it dearly, haven't we? So anyhow, next time out, hopefully by the time I turn the camera on again for this project, I'll get this stained and get it set aside so the stain can dry. Now the reason I'm not staining all this together, I have a lot of edges to stain and I don't like overlapping. You'll get dark streaks, so I kind of like to do the big components. I like to do them all at once, or not all at once. I can't talk. See, I'm getting out of practice talking to you guys on the camera. I'm sitting here stumbling for words. I'm not talking very smoothly. I got to get my ass in gear and get back in the swing of things. But I like to do the big components like this separately. That way I can get things stained evenly. It's so easy to make a mistake with staining. It's really easy, and I'd rather minimize those mistakes. So I've got some sanding to do, obviously, but yeah, we're in pretty good shape here. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is another one of those proof of life videos and a little bit of progress, but we're gaining on everything. So I'll catch you guys on the next one.